Hey folks, welcome to our latest episode of Football's Life. We're back. Aiden, get those fingers up. You're under a
Get
kick.
Get
them
those
up.
Get
fingers.
those
Get
fingers
them
going.
up.
Come on. So yes, we are joined by a special guest. We're down a man. So Pat has decided he's obviously the move back out to North America. He's struggling to see the games, and he was just he decided it was time maybe to give it a to say ciao. So we felt Wazza had a great idea. We're like, "Oh, we don't have that Tottenham perspective, the Spursy angle. We do love it. So Wazza had a great idea. Aiden, a long time friend of myself and Wazza and colleague as well. I know that you and Mike don't know each other that well, which makes this even spicier because we love this perspective, given all of the things that have happened in the past week or so. But yes, and obviously quintessentially English with a double-barreled surname. So Aiden, welcome to Football is Life.
Thank you very much. This is a pleasure. I've been begging Waleed for this for a long time, so I feel like I've made it. This is a real pleasure, and
Oh,
hey, big shoes to fill with Pat. So I hope I can do it justice.
it's pretty easy. You just everything. You're just like believe, yeah, let's go. Like that's pretty much it, right? If you just do that, that's pretty much you're good. But listen, Aiden, we want to come to you first, right? So normally we would start with a different topic. Mike's probably happy you're here because it gives him at
Thank
least
God.
10 minutes just to get his thoughts together. Mike, it was bullets last time. The bulletproof vest might need to be doubled up here, Mike, for this
Yes.
episode. But we'll come to that, Mike. Don't worry. But Aiden, what
Good.
we'd love your perspective on is what's happening at Spurs. Okay, we now have another manager in. Okay, it feels a little bit to me. Is it Tudor? His name is that right?
That's the one.
Yeah,
Big Igor Tudor.
Igor plucked out of somewhat the abyss, feels like to me. Thomas Frank, who I personally, and I know, I'm pretty sure all of us podcasts have all been quite like big fans of his body of work, generally speaking. The Spursiness, it's not gone. He got infected. Ange Postecoglou basically blows the club up and says, "You're all a piece of shit, mate." It's they're like, yeah, oh, it's ridiculous, mate. I can't sign you. I want to sign Messi, but they wouldn't let me sign
Stop
Messi.
it. Oh,
Yeah, so
God.
I know. But anyway, look, so we're going to start with Spurs, Aiden. We'd love your take. You're a long-time Spurs fan. You go to the games. What's the mood like at Tottenham amongst the fans? We'll forget about the game at the weekend at the moment because we have to come to that. But in terms of what's happened from Ange through to Thomas Frank, now Igor Tudor, and obviously the Daniel Levy situation, tell us how you Spurs fans are feeling right now.
It's been a roller coaster in the sense that the end of last season was uh, probably the highest, one of the highest peaks of my Tottenham fandom with regards to winning the Europa League final. And obviously you put the league to the side with that, and the whole thing with Tottenham was we couldn't win a trophy, and so we got that monkey off our back, and that felt brilliant. And then the decision to let go of Ange at the time felt very bittersweet, um, but perhaps the right decision, just because uh, the league form had deteriorated kind of over that last season, and we had so many injuries.
Oh, and it's
And
picked up
it,
now, hasn't it?
I mean, this is the thing. At the time, it was like, everything you read was it's the way that they're training, it's the way that he plays, it's the result of all of that that Tottenham have this many injuries. And then you fast forward less than 12 months, and Daniel Levy's gone. We've hired the manager who was supposed to lead the change, and he's already gone. And now we're in a situation where the injuries are worse than they were at the end of last season. We've got more key players out. And now we're kind of, factory reset again. And that's not just with the team, the manager, it's with the board and the people actually running the club. And there's been a lot of messages and more communication from Tottenham than I think we've had as long as I can remember with regards to actually hearing from the people who are making the decisions and what the plan is. Vinay came in over from taking a couple of years out since Arsenal, and obviously that looked like a green flag at the time because he did such a good job with rebuilding Arsenal from where they were, bringing in Arteta and having the patience to let him build something that has ultimately turned out to be very successful. Trophies or not. So it felt like things were turning in the right direction. To use one of Frank's analogies of turning the tanker around, but it's stuck. We're wedged in the Suez Canal, And it feels like there needs to be a factory reset again because Thomas Frank looked like the answer. And you said it, Ross. And I think the general perception of Thomas Frank is that he's very honest, pragmatic. He's very likable. He did such a good job with Brentford. And he seemed to keep that ship steady when they were constantly having their best players nabbed. But he just couldn't do it with Tottenham. And I was very much in the camp of this team is not as good as a lot of people think it is. And I think people underestimate the weight that Kane and Son have been pulling for the last, however many years. And losing those two sorts of players, you don't just bounce back. And you can't do it. It's not possible. And so, with a little bit of hindsight 2020, and perhaps you don't even need that. You should have seen it at the time. We should have built more around and spent more around a player like Kane when we had him and capitalized on that because they don't just come out on the academy conveyor belt every year. So that's a massive missed opportunity. And as much as I do like Thomas Frank, I think he I don't think he was ready for it. I really don't, and I really really wanted him to do well. And even after the West Ham game in January, where we lost 2-1. We were absolutely abysmal all game. We started the first half so poorly. West Ham deserved to be ahead. They should have been ahead by more. And then we started to play a little bit in the second half. Just couldn't create anything clear cut. And then they score at the end from a corner, and it's just even after that, I was like, this team is not as good as people think it is. But I think in the end, it was just best for both parties that he went for his reputation and for Tottenham too.
Hmm. Well, answer, you like got a question. On you go.
Quite a few actually. I also don't buy into the fact that they haven't spent money. Like they definitely have spent. Like so it's more so just bad recruitment. I mean, yeah, building around Kane and Son. Like how much what like no, Gareth Bale was before you bought Chadley and Capu and all those other awful players during that time, right? So that can at least be forgiven. But devil's advocate, given that you are 16th place now and you finished 17th last year, what was the point in sacking Ange?
No, and this is the thing again, where if you go back, that looks like the incorrect decision. And obviously he goes on the overlap and he says a lot of scathing things. And I think the majority of Tottenham fans are just in agreement. I don't think he said anything that we didn't believe or that we didn't already feel was the case about the club. And when he was Spurs manager, the one of the great things about Ange was that he would actually go out on a limb and defend Tottenham as a club for the fans. Less, he wouldn't defend the board or some of the decisions that the club had made previously, but he would defend what Spurs is about and the history of the club and this Spursy reputation that we have. He was like, the only way we get rid of that is if we go and win something and we go and change that. And so he tried his best to do that. And at the time, it was, very, very difficult to see him go as that sort of character. And in the end, Frank became the antithesis of him, which is what Ange had called out himself. He said, I'm going to be replaced by John or Joe the pragmatist. And that's exactly who Frank was. He came in and he was the opposite of Ange. And yeah, you read things in the media about how, Frank would go on about how good Arsenal are. And there's the picture of him holding the Arsenal Cup, and it just snowballs into this big thing where it's indefensible. And, as a Tottenham fan, it's hard to see that happening and go from someone like Ange, who would have, died for what the club stood for, to someone like Frank, who is a little bit more realistic about what the situation is and where we are, and too flattering of our biggest rivals. So we need something in the middle, really, is what I think. But yeah, if you'd given me a choice now between sticking or twisting at the end of last year, I would have stuck with Ange 100%.
Really? Do you think that's like you're not a bit as a Spurs fan? I would be like affronted the fact that he went on the overlap and basically just there was no accountability for Ange. You set the team up in certain ways, and just honestly were appalling. Like it was almost like it's this like I don't know if you guys probably don't follow Scottish football as much, but Celtic appointed Wilfred Nancy, right? Came It's these modern managers. Like every great manager that's worth their salt has adapted. Sir Alex Ferguson, Jose Mourinho, Jurgen Klopp, even Guardiola. Now you're seeing it like almost through necessity, right? Because it's the first like maybe jeopardy he's had. He's usually had the best players and stuff like that, but you have to adapt. I think there's just like pig-headed. The thing is, I'm with you, Aiden. I've always loved and just general. It's like Jurgen Klopp. I love him because his general beliefs I believe in, but he also is not so arrogant. Like there was an arrogance about the approach from Ange, and it's almost like at least Thomas Frank was honest about like I've got to probably try and make things work. So I know what you mean. There's like neither is working, which means something is broken, and I think part of that is like if the players aren't good enough, if you're too gung ho like Ange, you're going to get beat most weeks. That's what's going to happen. With Thomas Frank, it looked like at the beginning of the season he'd maybe figured out a recipe to be. We said that we felt they were cheating at the beginning. It felt like they were getting away with things at the beginning of the season with those results, didn't it? Um, but then it kind of feels that I don't know what's fallen apart with Frank because that's what I'm struggling with because I'm almost like I understood the Ange decision because I just feel like he didn't show enough humility to be able to get me to believe he could adapt to take Spurs forward in a meaningful way. I think you're right in terms of a spokesperson for your club. The fans get it, but Thomas Frank, I do feel he's got the chops. Like I'm almost like I feel like ugh, could you have stuck with him? You think it was a no, right? You're saying you can't. You think it was just the best for both parties.
I think a lot of people were calling for his head very early with Frank, and that I disagreed with because of the point I made around the reality of where we're actually at in terms of the squad. It's not as good as a lot of people think it is. And Willie, you're right. We've spent a lot of money. We've spent a lot of money. If you look at players like Solanke, he was 60 million. We then went and spent a similar amount of money on Javi Simmons in the summer. So there's money in those two players, and then we've invested little bits here and there kind of around them. But I think generally the back to the point I made about Kane and Son, you can't replace those two players no matter how much money you spend. And I think if you look at Tottenham's forward line, we've struggled to score goals all season. And one of the hard things about Thomas Frank's football, being there in the stadium and seeing it and watching the games on TV is that we were so out of ideas. You talk about how arrogant Ange was in terms of the way that he wanted to play and not having the ability to chop and change and try something different if it wasn't going well. I honestly think Frank was the same, but just it was in a more negative way. So many of our attacks would be just kind of chipping the ball down the line to Kudus and hoping that he would first win the ball and then beat his man. We didn't really have any midfield players that could kind of grab the game by the scruff of the neck and drive it forward. And I really like Xavi Simmons. I think he's going to be brilliant. He didn't start as fast as you would have liked a player like that to start, just in terms of adapting to the Premier League. And you see it with Verts as well and whatnot. But look, Thomas Frank started so strongly, and the first game under Frank was the game against Paris Saint-Germain, right? The kind of first game of the season, the Super Cup. And in that game, we looked so good, and we got the balance right of being defensive, but being able to counter and being able to create goals from set pieces. And what looked so promising in that game then became the underlying reality for the season, which is that was the only way we really looked threatening was from set pieces. And you look at Romero and Van der Ven, and they're scoring every week, and I think he struggled with. I'm not going to pretend I'm some tactical genius and that I have a fix, but I think he was kind of just as unpragmatic as Ange, just in a different way, and it was more negative. And if you're not going to change the way you're playing and you're not going to try different things, then you better be positive about it rather than negative about it.
Yeah, it's fair.
Sounds like a
Okay.
similar manager in North London. Hmm.
Well,
Okay.
that does sound like that. Mike,
Ah.
what's your take? We'll have to come to this game on this. There's a huge game on Sunday. North London derby, they're always huge. In other circumstances, this would have felt maybe like a bit of a foregone conclusion that Arsenal would go there and win. We now have a new manager at Tottenham. We said, Igor Tudor, so I don't know an awful lot about him, so I can't claim to. So I don't know how he's going to approach that game. But there sometimes is that bounce that, and also it's more the unknown of like we don't know the patterns of play under Frank. You probably knew how they would set up, and they were pathetic against Arsenal in the first half last time, to be honest. But Mike, how are you? Look, we'll talk about Arsenal in a second, but this game, as you know, for obvious reasons, now has added context because, one thing we do know is Spurs do love, if they can't win anything, they love stopping you winning things. And this is a great opportunity for them. Instead of hoping, trying to or hoping to not win against Man City, it's like you can go and affect this yourself, right? By actually putting it to Arsenal, who look maybe for the first time this season that they may be a bit of fragility, real fragility in terms of. Yeah, I'll come to that. But yeah, how are you feeling about the game, Mike? And then we'll get Aiden's view from a Spurs perspective and how you guys are feeling about the potential jeopardy after the last North London derby.
And so
It's a
also, like,
massive
don't be
test.
nice. Don't be nice. Like,
Yeah.
none of this nice stuff. If this was Ross and I talking about City and Liverpool, we'd be
Yeah,
shit.
no. So first of all, I before the result against Wolves, my attitude would have been, Tottenham Hotspur playing Arsenal back into form since 1886. But this is the test of the season, the test of the season, because it's the fact that it's the derby that it is, the fact that you just dropped points against two teams to open the race wide open with City. This is the test, and I am really, really concerned that he is going to play to not lose. And it is the biggest mistake if he does that. He the locker room or the dressing room talk to them needs to be, you are fucking Arsenal Football Club. Go out and win. And I'm afraid he's going to say, don't lose.
He's not, Mike. No, he can't this time. I actually think he's been forced. The Wolves result forces the issue now
I
because
hope so. I hope so. But I was listening to Thierry Henry talking. They were breaking
yeah,
down the game, and he was very skeptical. He was saying the Wolves game was always going to be tricky, and I was like, "What are you talking about?" And sure, that's why he plays and is a world class striker, and I watch, right? But I hope you're right. But there's been so many instances over the last couple of seasons of go out and fucking win. And they, I mean, they were so collapsed for the last 20 minutes of that match. I mean, that's why there was an own goal to tie the game because they were so collapsed. Here I am collapsing, right? Like just go out and, ah,
well,
fuck,
listen, Mike.
so
Mike,
mad.
here's the thing, Mike. The thing about that game, again, the performances haven't been consistently at a level for a number of weeks now, right?
Yep.
Um, there was you go 2-0 up. There's an element of like, yeah, look, just make sure the game's finished off and see it out. It was
Yeah.
when we scored it, but it was a really good strike, the 2-1.
Yeah. The first goal was great.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
good goal.
Absolutely.
Maybe could close them down a bit quicker. Good goal.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
but then and the only person, again, that's why I love Declan Rice. That Declan Rice is trying to pick his teammates up off the pitch and get up and stop. Like Trossard, Fed, like they're trying to waste it. It was like seeing, like, I'm obviously a Liverpool fan, when we, we've been the ascendancy in recent years, and Wazzy, you'll notice when you get teams that come to your stadium that just, or even you go and they're beating you and they're just clinging on for dear life and they're trying to run the clock. That's not how champions elect perform. In those moments, you go, we're going to get the next goal. We're not going to leave this to what happened again, a miscommunication between Raya and Gabriel. And obviously, Calafiori tries to clear it in the. You leave yourself open to those things if you don't take control. And this is like a mind. It gets back to the same thing. the weird thing is Mikel Arteta, he almost seems so relaxed and almost like he's laughing about it. He seems like he's like, which is the complete opposite now. So I don't know, Aidan, how are you viewing this game coming in now? I mean, this is a huge opportunity in terms of a season that's looking pretty bad for Spurs. This would be a huge. I mean, if you were able to get a result here and tilt the title race the other way around, and all of a sudden Arsenal are behind City. But how are you? How's Spurs fans feeling? Are you nervous or?
I think the general Spurs population is feeling more positive about the game since Frank's gone, just because I think the fear and apprehension of him trying to do the same thing again would have been so great. And you just saw how toothless we were at the Emirates, and we never even tried to play football. And Eze sold his soul for that game, and good for him. Four goals, and the rest of the season on the bench. I'm really happy for him. But
which means he's only going to
actually,
rise and come at you again.
yeah,
The reigning
Mike.
boos, and I'm sure you'll be leading them over the weekend, are going to be epic.
Yeah, I tell you what, it's going to be loud when he comes on in the 75th minute. That's for sure. But
Touche.
I've actually prepared. There's some great things you can say as a Tottenham fan for this weekend, just to manage expectations and just to kind of annoy the Arsenal fans around you. Leading with the league is already over. That's a really strong one. Just get that one, fire that one off straight out the gate. Sit down in the pub with your Arsenal mate and just say, well, league's over. So this doesn't really matter, really. Exhibition game time, and that's pain-free happiness hedging. That costs you nothing, and that's a really good way just to kind of set the stage for the afternoon. You can also say that we actually haven't won a league game in 2026. So that is also pretty dooming. So where's the expectation? We haven't won a league game in 2026, and you expect us to go and beat top of the table. It's not happening. And then obviously you've got the injury list and how good Arsenal's squad is in comparison. But on a serious note, I actually think the energy in the stadium on Sunday is going to be as good as it has been in a long time, because the change has been made with the manager. I actually think the support for the team generally this year has been quite good. I think if you look at the support at some of the away games, since Frank made that comment at the game after the game at home against Fulham, where Vicario copped some boos for the mistake that he made in the second goal, I think it was. And he made that comment around, they're not real Spurs fans, and perhaps poorly worded by him with good intentions. I would say that the support generally has actually been towards the team has been very positive. Frank obviously had all the boos at the end. Igor Tudor has, carte blanche, really. Like, there's no preconceptions of him. I think he's come in, and even just within the first interview or two, he said the right things, that, you shouldn't go into any game looking to draw. There's no excuses. Tottenham cannot be relegated. And that's why they've brought him in, because his record is taking over mid-season and trying to steady ships. And that's what he did successfully with Juve, before he then got sacked the season after. He got them into a Champions League spot at the end of the season, had a pretty solid record to end the year. And then obviously struggled in the second season. But that's why he's not the permanent manager. That's why they've said to him, this is for until the end of the season. And it's beneficial to both parties. But look, I'm looking forward to Sunday in many ways, because it's my first time in the stadium for a North London derby, so that's exciting. I do think it's going to be loud, and they've announced that the guest of honor for the weekend is going to be Dele Alli, and that is one of our best chants. So They're going to bring him out at halftime. That's going to be great. And hopefully we're just not 4-0 down by then, because otherwise that's going to suck.
Isn't
But
he
yeah,
like only 30 years old? Like, what is happening? What world am I living in that
well,
Dele
I
Alli's
mean,
being rolled out like he's Elton John? Like, this
Went
is
off
we
a
peak
can,
cliff.
Spurs.
Yeah.
This is peak
we
One of
Spurs,
can,
the
isn't it,
long
Ross?
list of Jose Mourinho destructions, right?
Yeah.
yeah,
Off,
seriously,
yeah. Off,
seriously.
Just,
off, off a cliff. So Aidan, on a serious note, do you think there's a chance you get like a, and again, I think a positive result is any points at all, right? Because
Mm,
again, like you say, context sitting where you are on the table, where Arsenal are now. Look, the Wolves game is what I expect and what I think most Spurs fans should fear is a response, right? Which is usually what you get for a team like,
absolutely,
yeah. And so you think Arsenal will
absolutely.
be at it, but the interesting thing is going to be the Spurs response with the eager. Like, again, if Frank's still there, I'd have been like, I could see this being a little bit like I would feel more comfortable. But I think now there is a bit of, like you say, the crowd are going to be up. Players just sometimes get that. Again, it's like it's auditioning again for it's like the new manager. He's going to bring some positivity, like you said. That's what he does, right? And I actually think, look, when Arsenal in a fragile state, if Spurs can go at them a little bit and get the crowd engaged, like that's the key to getting something from the game, because that's where Arsenal right now look. They look a bit bereft, Mike. Like I mean, the Wolves game, they look a little bit lost on the part. And I'm, as you know, I'm a big Declan Rice fan, and I think he's great. But there's a lack of, they don't look galvanized anymore on that pitch, and there's a lot of like finger pointing. There's a lot of like, there doesn't look like there's the same, that collective togetherness. And they do have well, potential injuries. We'll talk about that shortly, but be interesting to see how. Fantasy wise, we'll talk about it, because it's a minefield for Arsenal picking right now, given with like who may or may not be playing. But yeah, Mike, what like Mike, are you, and Wazza, actually we'll come to you, Wazza. Like, are you now, like, you surely now have to believe you can, because here's the thing, Wazza, this is now factual. It's in your hands. If you win all your games, you win the title. Same with Arsenal. But if Manchester City win every game, you will win the title. Um,
I
how
am
you feel?
officially hopeful. I must
Wow.
announce and declare to the podcast and to all 5 listeners, I'm officially hopeful.
Well, 4 now that Aiden's on, right?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. But you must be
But
buzzing. You got Newcastle on
yeah,
Saturday. The thing is, you go first, right? So you can get it down to 2. And it'd be nicer maybe if you could have gone ahead of them, right? But so I think that you've got to take care of business. And again, look, Newcastle, I think they did travel to Karabakh. They got a great result out there.
Mm.
But you kind of go, probably Man City again. Haaland's got a bit of an injury concern. I'm sure he's going to be fine. But you would, again, Newcastle is not. It's not a foregone conclusion. Was they? I know you beat them in the cup comfortably. That's not
I
right.
don't think that I completely agree. It's not going to be like a slam dunk. Yes, we're going to absolutely shit on them. It's not the case at all. But they're going to make it as uncomfortable as possible for us. Much like I think this weekend, Spurs are going to make this as turgid and horrible a game as they honestly can. And I'm so excited for it. But fundamentally, like I think that, you know, I do think like the most important players for the rest of the season are not Erling Haaland or Donnarumma or anything like that. It's going to be a combination of Bernardo Silva, Rodri, and Diaz. Like those 3 are the players who have won repeatedly and won enough that they will be the ones who will basically pull the games by the scruff of the neck and go, no, this is in our control now. Like we need to take this, because if we win the game, there is no way that any single Arsenal player walks onto that pitch not thinking, "Oh bugger, if we drop a single point in here, even like this is curtains. Like this is bad."
Mm-hmm.
Like so, I reckon, yeah, it's great that we're actually playing first, because in terms of mind games, this works a treat. And I think that every Arsenal fan's also going to be watching that game and hoping for a stuffy draw. But I do have faith. I think we can win. It's not foregone. But I have faith that we can now pull this out of the bag, and it's going to be such a.
Oh
This
my
would be
God,
the season.
Wazza,
This would
don't.
be just. This would be the season where you can't even say that City won the league. It's that Arsenal lost the league, and that's
It's
how it'll always be
it,
remembered.
you're right, Mike. I'll come to you in terms of how you're feeling, because I think that here's the crazy thing this weekend. I'm actually, objectively going. It's conceivable City and Arsenal both might not win. Like that is like you usually when you've got 2 teams going for it, I think the fact that City have, you feel like they've got to go and put the foot, like now, because they've had chances before and they've fallen flat, right? Arsenal now have left it. It's almost so open again against Forest, against Wolves, two teams in the relegation battle at the bottom of the table, dropping points. You don't usually see that from people that are going for a title tilt. I think this is the lowest point tally anyone's ever had. I think maybe Leicester might be the only one. Like so, in terms of like where we are. So yeah, I mean the pressure it's really amping up this weekend, and yeah, it's actually what I don't know why I believe it. I still feel City have more. I don't know. I felt they had more banana skins until Arsenal started doing this, and now I'm kind of going, ugh, like, ugh.
No one wants to win the league. No one wants to win the league at all.
And
This
it's
is the
frustrating.
most
Do you know what?
tragic year.
As a Liverpool fan, even though we had that, like, see if we got our act together quicker, we could have been like actually anyone like Man United could have been Chelsea could you know like, you look at it, you kind of go, a lot of people could have been in the title race this year because the bar has been for what. The crazy thing is though, is the Arsenal squad. Like everyone knows it, it's the best squad. Like everyone looks at it, balance, depth, everything, like outside of Gyökeres, which I think again another like he just looks like. I mean, Kai Havertz isn't the answer, but he might be a better answer than Victor. I know he runs about and
Gabriel Jesus, if he could only stay healthy, is the answer. I mean, he's the one that keeps scoring.
yeah, it's a bit wild, Mike. Right? It's a bit wild, but I mean, it's going to be. We're going to have to go predictions here. What are our predictions for those that who backs City to beat Newcastle? I'm going to say yes that they'll beat
Yeah.
Newcastle. I
Yeah,
feel
yeah,
like
yeah.
they have to win that game.
Yeah.
Who's backing Arsenal? Oh, sorry, Aiden, do you back City to win against Newcastle?
Yeah, I mean, A, you have to, Waleed, otherwise you and I are going to have big issues. And then B, Newcastle are just abysmal away from home.
Trash
Abysmal.
knows trash. Trash does know
Yeah,
trash. I feel like you should be
exactly.
able to say that confidently.
I mean that was Frank's undoing. Like we couldn't even beat Newcastle at
Yeah.
home, and they came and they outplayed us, and they've been dreadful away all year. So yeah, I mean, I would be, and especially with
Yeah,
the midweek game, I think you should probably have too much for them.
I would think
You'd
so.
hope so, yeah. Yeah, I agree.
And then Arsenal, Tottenham. What do we think?
I have to
Go on,
back
Mike.
Arsenal, but I'm going to be watching from behind my sofa.
Aiden, do you think? You backing the boys and you backing the mighty
I
Spurs?
would, yeah. I mean, I would love to say that, I think I feel hopeful. I think Arsenal are going to win on Sunday. I think you're right that you can't not respond after that Wolves game. And then ultimately it's down to Tottenham to do something that they haven't done all year, which is be compact and solid, and actually make the game difficult for the other team. Go on, Willie.
Now, Aidan, I would challenge that you can choose to not respond because we've been here for 3 seasons now where this has happened every season, where Arsenal reach spring, they drop some points, then they drop some more points, and then it keeps happening, and lo and behold, you're in April.
Yeah, do you know?
We've seen it before, haven't we, Roscoe?
But Aiden, do you know? I don't know. I don't know the injury situation for Spurs, but I always look at the midfield. People have been able to. I don't really understand how like, Liverpool did it. I didn't really understand how like City did it. Like teams have like managed to dominate Arsenal in the middle of the park, which I feel like is like with Zubimendi, Declan Rice, and then whether you have Odegaard, whether you have Eze, whether you have Saka. It doesn't. To me, that's not really that. They're all good players. But Conor Gallagher's fit, right? He's in.
Conor Gallagher is one of the few players that is fit. I
And
think
he's got that Derby. He understands. Like, to me, he's like a key figure. Is Paulinho fit?
Palhinha is also fit, I believe. I'm very interested to see how he lines up for the first
Well,
game
yeah,
because I think he is a five at the back guy. But
right.
the issue
Okay.
he has is that we don't have three fit centre backs. So
Is
we
is,
have we
Berg,
have
is Bergval is Bergval back? Like who have you got in midfield? No.
no, so we don't. So the injury list is pretty dark. So I believe just off if I were to go off the top of my head, Porro, I believe, is still out. Adogi is out. Romero is obviously still suspended. And then Kevin Danso, who would be back up to Romero, he's got a toe injury. So that's just the back line. And then
Jesus.
Bergvall's injured.
Bentancur?
Bentancur's injured. Madison and Kulusevski obviously haven't played a game all season. And then Richarlison is injured but was pictured in training this week, so he may be on the bench. And then Odegaard, who I feel dreadful for because he just seemed to be kind of, gaining some confidence. He tears his ACL in that game against Newcastle. So he's got slim pickings when it comes to the squad that he's got to pick from. And I think that's
Who's
gonna
gonna play centre half with Van de Ven then?
Dragusin. It's
Oh
gonna
yeah,
have to be
yeah.
Van de Ven and Dragusin. So you can see the look on Waleed's face, and that
But
is
My
the confidence.
but you might no no. But hear me out. He might put Paulinho as a three. That would be the guy to put
This
as
is
he can play
yeah.
there. Yeah, and then who the wing backs? But I didn't know Udogie and Porro were out. That's like
Yeah. So
They've
then,
got
so then I
12
imagine
red
it.
flags
yeah
on
yeah
fantasy. I was like, holy shit, that's a
yeah.
12
Yeah.
red flags.
Ben Davies is he out as well?
Ben Davies is
Yeah.
out, so it's going to be Spencer left wing back, and then
I
I
like
imagine
Spence.
Archie Gray at right wing back.
Don't love that.
Um, no,
Love that.
and then
But
if
then you got the two boys in midfield. Okay, I can see that. And Mike, I think as I'd say Archie Gray. Like the question I have for you, Mike, is who's going to play left wing? Because Arsenal's situation, I'm here. I don't know. I've read that Trossard is more unlikely to play.
Yeah,
It's read.
that.
Odegaard is almost certainly back, and I assume we'll go straight back into that role, given that he's the captain. I'd be shocked if not. Madueke's been playing really well.
He has. He
I've got my
has.
fantasy, but Saka's back, so I feel like would they put Madueke in the left, or would they play Eze because of how well he did? Like
I think that it's likely to be Eze
that's what
on
I
the
think. You
left.
think Madueke
Yeah.
gets dropped?
Crazy as it sounds for the way he's played, yeah. Yeah, because wait, he's the like for like swap for Saka, right? Like, I mean, that's where he's played his best is on the right. So I think that he would get dropped and potentially come in the 70th minute or something. But yeah, if you're going to play I think you're going to play him on the left.
Yeah, I
the
mean,
one thing
this
I
might
would
be
say is, I hope, and I may eat my words for this, but never mind. I hope they start Saka in the 10 because Saka is so dangerous when he's out wide, and I feel like I have the same feeling every North London derby where as soon as he gets one on one, I'm like, we're in serious trouble. And
You
he
know,
always cuts in, and he
you know,
always calls in a shot.
But
Yeah.
Jed Spence, I think, is probably one of the most well-equipped players to deal with him. I would say that you have, right? Because he's
Yeah,
not he's pretty quick. He's physically
mm,
strong.
he is.
I do like him. I know he's not got a ton of experience, but yeah, you would, and again, if they're five at the back, he's got that sort of left-sided centre half to be the cover then, right? So, but I agree. I don't know. It'll be interesting. I'd be interested. He might not. He might be cautious with Odegaard, play Madueke, Eze, and Saka. I actually think that's pretty frightening if they like. 'Cause I think like all three of them. I think that would be like if Saka's in the 10, Madueke and Eze either side of him. Gyökeres is the one that doesn't worry me
he's
as
not
much.
playing.
He'll
No,
play.
He's not
no,
playing.
I
He's not
can't
playing.
imagine him playing in
He's
this.
not playing.
You think
I can't.
Jesus is going
I
to play?
think
Yeah.
if it were me, I would be absolutely starting Gabriel Jesus.
Yeah,
100%.
it's a tough one for fantasy 'cause I've got Madueke. I was planning to transfer him out and Saka came back, but then obviously his other injuries. I'm going, I feel like just taking an absolute flyer on Eze because of what happened last time. But that's like, I don't know if that's. I need to have a think about it, and see what happens. But monster game on
Huge,
Sunday.
massive game.
Maybe Saka won't limp this game. Who knows?
Oh, don't start me
It
on
could be
that.
the first game that he might not limp. This is
That's bad.
amazing.
Mike,
I
you see,
mean,
Mike,
we all know that's result dependent, Waleed. So TBD.
of course it is. Mike, what about Arteta and his weirdly like relaxed, almost comical mood just kind of like we got to take the bullets, got to take the criticism. He seems so relaxed, almost laughing. Like
Yeah, I don't know if it's a psychological tactic to take like to make it light in the dressing room because they're like clearly to be a fly on the wall in that room, it's got to be really quiet and everyone's in their heads, and so maybe he's trying something to lighten the mood. I don't know. Maybe he needs to hire another pickpocket. I don't know. I mean,
He's going to get somebody in, right? He's going to get
yeah.
like Yuri
Get a
Geller or
magician who
somebody.
does like
Yeah,
balloon animals or something. Just
that's
like,
it. Yeah,
lighten
yeah,
the
that's
mood.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's it.
Look,
Exactly.
go and get the kick around with the boys tweet. Go on, go and get it. Get them
Yeah.
back up on the
I,
big
I
screen.
I would love to see that balloon animal guy come in and just let that make a donkey go. This is what you all are playing like. You're donkey, you bunch of donkeys, right? That's it. Just like but yeah, yeah, he is a bit mental. Yeah, so yeah, there definitely seems to be some. I don't know. My reading at Mike was more like he's trying to like. I do think he understands that this is like psychological, and he's
Yeah.
like,
Yeah. Yeah.
how do
This
I
is
like?
100% in their heads.
Yeah, how do I lighten the load a little bit in
Yes.
terms of like but they just don't. Yeah, it's look, I think the first, I don't know what you think, Aidan, but I think the first 15, 20 minutes is always key in these games, right? And it'd be interesting to see if Arsenal are quite happy to stay. Basically, if they're worried enough about Spurs, and the reason I'm interested in that is with Igor Tudor, obviously they'll have a look at he's five at the back, but you don't really know, right? It is hard to predict. So I wonder if that with Arteta, the way that his DNA is, does he go, let's play this like a game?
Wait and see.
Well, it's more like we might need to be. They might be a little bit more afraid than they would have been, is what I mean. Whereas
Mm.
typically, if there's certain games you go into, you go, we're not really afraid of these guys. We're going to play our game. But I do wonder if be a wait and see, which will try and stifle the atmosphere. But I think Spurs have got to find a way. This is where I think Conor Gallagher, you know what it's like, Aiden. Couple of challenges in like the Spurs players have got to understand this. Like
Yeah.
you've got to go and make this and engage the crowd and make Arsenal feel that pressure, right? If you can do that, then that's a little bit of a leveler for me. Obviously, look, it comes down to moments of quality. Arsenal, we know like it's going to be a tough day for Spurs, I think, regardless, because Arsenal have
Mm.
more quality. They just do. But I think that's the
I
game. Yeah.
I reckon this is my prediction is that it's less about the score, it's more so that Arteta is going to choose the exactly wrong lineup for this game. Like I think that he's gonna portray his game plan with the lineup, and Mike is gonna be absolutely fuming.
Apoplectic.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I reckon so. It's like I think it was the Liverpool game where you were feeling like that, like where
Yeah.
he chose the exactly wrong lineup,
Yes.
and you were like, "What is happening?"
I don't think
Yeah.
he can do
And
that
I
was
think
at
he's
this
good.
time. He
I
can't.
think he can do.
How can he? I mean, look, Gyökeres the striker is like what? I don't think that's a huge. I think Gyökeres could play. Could Spurs defense, like you say, is a little bit diminished, so he could have a good game. So I think that's not controversial. I think
I
actually the big
think
one.
the team picks itself.
Well, it's not that.
Like the
It's
majority.
the Odegaard one. And to your point, that this like that to me is the big call in the game, right? He is your captain, which I don't agree with, but he is your captain, right? Now, some people you could argue and say when he's out in the midfield, is he the kind of that thing that makes him tick, just the tempo piece? And I don't think he's particularly good to. I think he passes sideways a lot,
Yep.
but I think Declan Rice plays a bit stifled in that system with Zubimendi. But it's like there is that like should Eze play there? Should Saka play there? You could play. I don't know. I think that's the big call in the game, which is like, and Madueke is another big call, which is as good as Saka is. Like, do you like? I think that's the big decision. I think the left hand side then it becomes if you do play Saka right, I think Eze starts right. Whereas I think that's a huge call as well. Does Eze? I do think Arteta might go with Eze just because of how he played last time. But he could put Madueke in the left. I mean, I think the Odegaard one though is a key one. Is like if he going to go back in, and Saka's going to play wide, like you said, Aiden. I think that gives Spurs a bigger problem, in my opinion. I think Odegaard's easier to defend, as well. I think also
Yeah.
both fronts. I actually think Saka's more dangerous in that hole because he will actually beat whereas Odegaard's not really going to drop the shoulder and beat you. Like he's more of a tempo guy. But I think that's the huge call in the game for Arsenal in terms of lineup. Do they play Odegaard, their captain, in this game? I think you have to if he's your captain.
If he's your captain,
You would say he
you
has
know
to
how I
start.
feel about that.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah,
But I think for the majority of the game, your Arsenal are going to have the ball. And I think we'll try and find a way of setting up at that five at the back, like you said, with Polina there, with Van de Ven and Dragusin. And so you're going to have a lot of the ball in front, kind of in front of that back five anyway. And then you hope that a midfield combination, I mean, maybe he goes for Gallagher and then maybe someone like Basuma, who's kind of come back into the team a bit because he he can kind of bring the ball out, even though he is
Red.
a bit of a joker card, So look, I think he needs to
Might
find.
you play Basuma? Might you play Basuma at centre half?
No, I think you've got to have Polina back there just because he's a bit bigger and more physical. I
Would
think
you
he's got
not?
more of.
Would you not rather the way Arsenal have been playing, I'm just trying to think about the Wolves games, but like match them up, like almost be positive and go, do you know what? Like
Man for man.
I don't think their centre forward is not Erling Haaland, it's not Isak. They don't have that person, right? They don't have that, even like Thiago at Brentford, you go, I'm really worried about Gyökeres, or even Jesus, you go, two centre halves, you go, we can deal with them, right? Do you think matching them up and going like putting the three in the midfield, like Basuma, Paulinho, and Gallagher, all pretty combative, like aggressive, physically, they're athletic guys, right? I think they can play well. I don't know. I just wonder then, do you give like, because I want my five at the back, I don't know. I worry the midfield then, if you got Gallagher and somebody else in there against that Arsenal three, I don't know.
Well, look, you need to be able to get out. And last time we didn't have Solanke, and Richarlison isn't as good as holding the ball up as Solanke is, and so we've got Solanke this time, and that's the main out. And then you have to hope. I imagine he'll play Xavi Simons. You have to hope that he can find a way of getting on the ball. And so there's obviously it's a very difficult balance to get right, and Arsenal are just a really hard team to play against, and the best you can do is clog it up. The best you can do is clog it up, get men behind the ball, and stop them from playing the way that they want to play. Because that's why Arsenal are so good in Europe, right? The games are so much more open. The guys have a little bit more space, and so we have to stop them from doing that. But it can't be as negative as we were as we were the first time round, where
it will
go on, Waleed. Yeah,
it will be negative.
Yeah.
It will.
You're going
to
to fight. You're going to have to fight your way through those first 15 minutes, and you're going to have to keep doing it. But you're going to have to get the ball up the pitch.
Generally,
which is what we didn't do. Which is what we didn't do last time.
I completely disagree with this tactic. Like, I think that if I was Spurs, if I was Igor Tudor, I would be like, I want to park the absolute bus for 75 minutes,
course.
And then give them hell in the final 15, because that's when Arsenal are going to start sweating bullets. They will not be able to keep it together. They will crack. Unless you can
that's what you're doing.
Unless you can do one or two things. You can either do that or hit them right at the very beginning. There's no middle ground. Like, you can't.
Who outside of Kudus a wing? Who else would be the winger if there was two wingers?
Kudus is injured, so if we were going to play with wingers, it would be probably Matisse Tell, and I imagine he'd put Xavi Simons out wide.
So see, be honest,
that's awful.
I would actually be a fan of trying to get Simons close to Solanke and the counter attack, having him link the play, and then maybe having maybe not having the wingers that are like, I know you could be a bit more pragmatic wide and say we don't really. You need guys with a bit of speed, maybe, but it's going to be interesting to see how they set up. Okay, look, let's finish up on fantasy. What do we think, Mike, our fantasy guru? Gabriel,
my fantasy season is going the way of Arsenal right now.
Yeah. But yeah, any drop them. I've given my bid. I've got Madueke. I'm actually looking. I don't want to ask you, Mike, about. I was like you. I doubled up on Arsenal defenders. Slightly regretting that. So Gabriel's still solid. Timber has been not so good in terms of returns. Obviously, they have Tottenham, then Chelsea, which you kind of going. They could get clean sheets in both, but do you think it's better to empty out of that? I'm considering Virgil instead of Timber. For example.
That's exactly where I'm at. I'm probably going to roll this week just because of the fixtures, and I do think that if anything, there's a chance for defensive returns for both of them this week. I think there's every possibility of that. I think. But Virgil's on the radar for sure. I think the Liverpool's playing well, and having some part of that defense, I think, is key. And just looking ahead to 31 with the blank, I need to make a couple of adjustments so that I can transfer my way through that without having to play a free hit.
Yeah. Aidan, any fantasy tips for us from you?
Any advice that I'd give would just torpedo everyone's season. So if you for context, last week Zig when everyone zags, Adam Armstrong captain, really strong double game week from him. But hey, there's always time. Maybe this is the turning point for both Tottenham and my fantasy season.
Well, maybe it is. Well, my tip would say I do like Virgil. I think Liverpool again, I've not got Wirtz and Ekitike. Wirtz seems to be the one.
I've got
The other
Verts.
one, I'd
Yeah.
say Chelsea. I'd say Joe Pedro, I would say, is a must pick up this week. I think he's been scoring goals.
Really?
Yeah.
Like, I get it for Burnley this week, but their fixtures after that are shit. I
Well,
would be unloading Chelsea players.
so I'm not. I think Enzo has been so consistent. I think Cole Palmer hasn't been the Cole Palmer I expected that he was going to take things away from Enzo. I'm sticking with Enzo at the moment. I think Chelsea. I think there's goals in that team, generally speaking. So I think defensively, I'm with you, Mike.
Yeah.
But I think Enzo seems to be so involved, like in it, yeah, and he's definitely got license. That's what I'd like to see Declan Rice get, is that role, that license to get into the box more. And I think João Pedro has been just in him and Thiago. You've got a whole now. Brentford's fixtures ease up now. He's been good. But I do think João Pedro could be a decent pickup. I think he's playing well. So I'm gonna ride that for a little bit longer than you, Mike. So we'll see how that pans out.
You were my
Um,
suggestion, Jared Bowen. That's who I'm going with. That's who
I
I'm
like
putting
that.
in the team this week.
I love that. Love Jarrod Bowen. Very underrated player. I would argue better than Bukayo Saka, in my opinion.
If we're just looking at goals this season, I mean,
Well,
I
Every
actually don't know who has more
every
goals this
season.
season.
Well, no, Jarrod Bowen every season has more output than any other English winger. And honestly, it's crazy how underrated he is, in my opinion. But anyway, listen, Aidan, thanks for joining us. Mike,
Yeah.
great to see it, boys. Enjoy the North London derby. I will be thinking of it'll be kind of nice to, and again, I'm sure Liverpool will lay an egg at Forest. Like, our season's been so up and down, so I'm kind of over it now. But I can kind of enjoy this from the sidelines a little bit. So I'm looking forward to the game. But yeah, hopefully you'll hopefully enjoy being there, Aidan, and Mike enjoy it from behind the couch.
Yeah, I will definitely be there.
Thanks a
Excellent.
lot.
Thank you, boys. Cheers.
Cheers.
Cheers.